Hi, my name is Jasmine. You can call me Jazz. I'm an adjunct professor here in Manhattan, New York City. I tutor in mathematics mainly because that's where most of my expertise is in, but I also have a degree in economics, a minor in statistics, and I studied Japanese for a few years and still sort of study Japanese. I'm also an independent composer and musician. Here is my electric flying V guitar where I study classical guitar, specifically right now classical counterpoint, mainly through Baroque genre, the Baroque era, I guess, the Baroque time with the works of Bach and Haydn. A little bit of Beethoven and Mozart. Those aren't Baroque composers, but um, when I say classical guitar, what I mean is like, let's say you have a standard rock song, anything, Radiohead, Muse, anything like that, anything you hear on the radio, anything you hear that's in popular rap, rock, we'll get to rap. And you are playing the guitar as a rhythm instrument. So you just hit an open D or open E and you hear that? That already is starting to sound like the beginning of a rock song. Just pick a rock song. I'm pretty sure there is one that starts like that. That's like pop guitar. That's like guitar within the last 50 years is like you treat the guitar like a rhythm instrument. And so you'll have a recurring note that's hitting like you would a beat of a drum. That's rhythm guitar. That's mainly what rock and metal does now. What I do play that version of guitar as well, but like what I'm interested in and what I study and research is classical guitar composition, where instead of having a pick now, you use your fingers as a polyphonic, polyrhythmic instrument. And so instead of playing just an E on open E here with a pick, I can take an E, then I can take its fifth, right? I could take its perfect fifth, just move it up here. That's its third. E, A, that's its fifth. I mean, sorry, that's B. Sorry. There we go. You can't hear it. I don't have it like on, but you could take E, its fifth, and then its third, which is G, right? And I can play those, and I can like cycle through them. So I could have an E, a B, and a G here. E, and I can go. Can you hear it? I'm switching between B and B flat, which is going to give you a mood. But anyway, the point is that I'm using the guitar now instead of strumming one note. And you can play guitar anyway. This is just the genre. This is just the time period. You can play it like this with all of my fingers now have a position. And so my G string hits my index finger, my middle finger is hitting my B string, and then my ring finger is hitting the E string, the upper E string, the lower E string, the first E string we call them. See, and these are all have their own position now. And you're playing it closer to like a mandolin. That's called classical guitar. And I use that to compose anything that I want. I mean, right now I'm working on doing composition in technical metal, tech, and death metal. And so, what do I mean by death metal? By death metal, I mean like so death metal, depending on like what subgenre of death metal, like let's say you have, in general, death metal is determined by the percussion. And so I program the beats in Ableton, and I use an Ableton push, and I program the beats, the drums. Like I will take a sample of an acoustic drum set and I program metal drums, and then on top of that I'll create a harmony or a melody or whatever, and then I'll, like with this microphone or another microphone, it depends, I'll do the death metal vocals. And like, so what does death metal vocals mean? Okay, so like you can sing normally la di da di da di da, or death metal can be like would sound like, that's just raw, right? Like I haven't put any effects on it, but you're like, stuff like that. It sounds like funny, but like when you hear it in the death metal song with the composition, with the entire arrangement, with the entire ensemble, it creates a mood and atmosphere. And so metal, one way to think about the metal genre is to think about it like it's the horror genre of music, if that makes sense, right? You can take metal and you can run it through so many, you can run it through nihilism if you want. You can run it through existential dread, cosmic horror, terror, disruption, anything like that. And so any story that you want to tell, you use your voice as an instrument to tell this story. And you can have death metal vocals on top of a melodic harmony or a melody or whatever, where the guitar is playing the melody or even someone is singing. And you get this Beauty and the Beast type comparison. It's not the best word for it. So outside of composition and classical guitar and metal, which is what I mainly do, I also run JCP Math, and this is the image behind me, or the website behind me. JCP Math is my research website. I now want to talk about like what it is I actually do. So like I said, I'm a research mathematician and an adjunct professor. I have an undergraduate degree in economics and an undergraduate degree in mathematics. I studied Japanese for a few years and studied and lived in Japan. I then went to graduate school at University of Washington for my first graduate degree in algebraic topology and geometry. So I studied things like covering spaces, the fundamental group, cohomology, sheaves, varieties, things like this, like algebraic structures, homology, category theory, infinity categories, all of these, words that you may hear if you're doing graduate level mathematics now, or if you've taken a course in algebraic geometry or an introductory course in category theory. After I finished my degree at the University of Washington under the subjects of topology and geometry, I went back to graduate school and did a master's degree in analysis. And the reason why I did two of them is because the subjects are so fundamentally in depth on their own that you could easily do a full degree in either one of them, and they would be separate, non-intersecting degrees in a way. They're not redundancies. So my second degree was in analysis, and I studied analytic number theory. And inside of that degree, I did independent work on the Riemann hypothesis, where I disproved or have published a disproof of the Riemann hypothesis and created what I call Burns' law, the fundamental law of prime numbers. Now, in January of 2026, I gave a presentation, and my first public presentation of Burns' law and the Riemann disproof, the joint mathematics meetings in Washington, D.C. I still go on to publish the implications of Burns' law and how it has shaped some other interesting problems, like if you've ever heard of P versus NP. Under Burns' law, my research is pointing to P not equal NP, and it's for a reason that's actually related to thermodynamics and how energy and information is used, and the complexity of information. And so we have that P is not equal to NP on top of disproof of the Riemann hypothesis. After I finished my master's, I decided I didn't want to get a PhD in mathematics because I wanted to research independently. Because my work was spanning so many sub-disciplines of mathematics, I felt it was best that I work and research independently. And that's why I incorporated JCP Math now as a research consulting firm here in New York City. And so I do research in math here. I publish the results when I feel like they're worth saying something about. And I also occasionally will do videos like demonstrating either like previous problems that I find interesting or maybe math problems that people get stumped on. Like a couple of years ago, I used to publish videos on like graduate algebra and graduate analysis preliminary exam problems just to help people study with them and things like that. I don't do that as much anymore. I don't think that that's like I don't need to do that mainly because I'm usually writing something with respect to my research, but if anyone's interested in that, I have no problem. In terms of like the subjects that I study or that I teach or that I tutor or help with, it can honestly, you can pick them from anywhere. I've taught at every level. I also have experience with K through 12. I used to work at Mathnasium. Now I know Mathnasium is an assigned curriculum, but I usually got gifted or accelerated students. If you do want to work with me and you are at the K through 12 level, I tend to take students in calculus, particularly calculus BC or AP statistics, but honestly, I will work with you. Doesn't really matter your level. I just that's just who tends to come with me is usually advanced high school students, advanced undergraduates, or graduate or working professionals, and we can work with any subdiscipline of mathematics, including statistics and economics. Like I mentioned before, I do have a degree in economics. I've studied macro and microeconomics, mostly econometrics and applied statistics, and have done some predictive modeling in both. No issue there. I'm fine with working with economics students. Like if you have studied, like if you're doing economics graduate school, for instance, and you need real analysis, like everyone in econ usually needs it at some point. You may not have done it in undergrad, but eventually you're gonna get a point where you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to take real analysis. I'm an econ student. How do I do this? How do I talk about compactness? What does this mean? What's a topology? What's continuity? How do I get things to converge? Stuff like that. It's important for economics, but it's not always described in economics in a way that is intuitive, and I can definitely bridge that gap for you, and that's easy enough. We can go through that if you want. Feel free to contact me whenever if you have any questions, if you want to work with me, if you want to schedule some times. That's completely fine. If you look at my availability and you don't see a time slot that works for you, we can always work something out. That's just general. Those aren't hard rules. That's just something that I like to put up. If you want to talk about guitar, I guess we can talk about guitar, but, don't really have to talk about guitar, metal, or anything like that. Yeah, but just feel free to contact me. I'm open to working with anyone. I love math. I love studying math. I think it's so much fun. I think it's cool that you came here and you're looking to get help, and I think math is way more than just getting a good grade on an exam. I know that's what you want. Everyone wants that because they want their life to move forward, but there's so much more to unpack and so many cool things you can do with math, and I'm here to show that to you. So thank you for coming. Thank you for visiting JCP Math. Thank you for visiting the Wyzant website at JCP Math, and I appreciate you and appreciate your time, and just good luck, and thank you again.